Operation Epigraph and the fake Rioja ring. And we talk wine scores. Just one more time, I promise. Well, I'm probably kidding. It'll be more than that. And 2024 ends up being the lightest California crush in over 20 years. All that and more on This Week Uncorked. Hello to episode 31 of This Week Uncorked for Monday, February 17th, 2025. I'm Brett Martin from Cork and Journey. That's your number one source for Corkage fees, restaurant reviews, winery reviews, and more. And with all of that, let's get into this week's news. All righty. Wine Searcher has a article on another fake wine ring being broken up. This time, it was busted by the combined forces of Spanish and Vietnamese police and members of Europol and members of Interpol. Everybody was there except the CIA and the FBI. I don't know why, because I know we're never over there doing anything. Anyway, the raids seized 17 fake brands of famous wine brands. The whole thing started when a Spanish tourist was out shopping around and he saw a bottle of wine that didn't look quite right. From the article, dubbed Operation Epigraph, the police investigation began after a Spanish holidaymaker spotted a wine sporting a label very similar to one being produced by a top Rioja estate, La Rioja Alta. The holidaymaker bought the wine and took it back to Spain for analysis. The results confirmed that neither the wine, the bottle, nor the labeling were legitimate. Well, there you go. Yet another fake wine ring being broken up. This seems to be happening a lot. There's a lot of money in wine. The prices for wine keep going up and up and up, especially on the high-end bottles. We see this a lot in Bordeaux, where you're getting kind of some famous wines being counterfeited. So anyway, nice job breaking that up. And a shout out to the holidaymaker. There you go. All right, and moving along. Man, I love this story. So big shout out to the Morning Claret and to Simon Wolf from the Morning Claret. He basically did the biggest deep dive I think I've ever seen on wine scores and, are they a waste of time? He basically thinks they're a waste of time. He's not going to score wines anymore. From the article, and I'm going to talk a lot about this, he basically said if we disregard scores that represent less than 5% of all reviews, we can also see that the scoring system here is in truth an 11-point scale, 84 to 95. Those big numbers don't mean much. Why not just use numbers 1 from 20 and start at 11? So he's comparing virtually every single major scoring company that's out there. So he kind of goes through and he talks about, hey, what does the 100-point score mean in high school? Well, if you got a 50 to 60, you're failing. If you got a 60 to 70, you're below average. 70 to 80, you're average. 80 to 90, you're above average. 90 to 100, you're excellent. You got an A. Robert Parker basically said if it was below 50 to 60, the wine was deemed to be unacceptable. If it was 60 to 70, a wine below average containing noticeable deficiencies. 70 to 80, an average wine with little distinction. 80 to 90, barely above average to a very good wine. 90 to 95, outstanding. 95 to 100, extraordinary. Wine Enthusiast kind of does the same thing, but they break it down. They get even smaller in the 80s, like 80 to 83 is acceptable, and 83 to 87 is good, and 87 to 90 is very good, and 90 to 94, excellent. Anyway, it goes on and on and on, and everybody's got their own thing. Janice Robinson has basically a 20-point score. And they kind of go through, this is a long article and it's worth the read, especially when you're looking at the big labels on the bottles and kind of what's happening on the bottles. And, that's these little benchmarks that go out there. But the really, really interesting thing is looking at the total number of reviews and the scoring for them. So they went through 400 plus thousand from Robert Parker, 383 plus thousand from Vinuous. Almost 400,000 from Wine Enthusiast. Janice Robinson, 271,000 plus reviews. Bottom line is 90 points is the big one. So virtually nothing below 80. Everything really is in 80, very little 80 to 84, 85. You start to see an uptick in the 85, but that 90-point score, That's the one. And for Janice Robinson, kind of a 12.5, I think is what the number comes in at, that most of her wines come in at. That's kind of the equivalent of a 90-point score. So he breaks it down, goes through it, and he says scores don't mean anything. I disagree. So I do think that if you're looking at this scale, whatever the scale is, and there's a thing for reviewers, most of the wines that are being submitted for review are from reputable winemakers that are going to be making a halfway decent wine. A lot of these sources, they're going to review anything they get, but winemakers really aren't going to send them plonk. So, if they judge it to be, it's probably going to get 85 to 90 points. But that doesn't mean the winemaker has to display it anywhere. And maybe people will go look at Robert Parker. They might not even know that they reviewed it. They're definitely not going to advertise it. But 90 points is like, hey, you've got a pretty good wine here. Example, last night, I opened this bottle that I got from SOMM Select. It's a 2010 Domaine Chardonnay Chateauneuf-du-Pape. Absolute garbage, virtually undrinkable, funky as all get out. Some people think this is great. This is a GSM blend. It was just so bitter, so bad. We ended up dumping the entire thing. We probably both finished 1/4 of a glass to try to do some tasting notes and try to rate it, but it was undrinkable. Are we going to do a review of that? I am not. On the other hand, this is barely going to make it. We opened another bottle last night because we're like, well, that one's not going to work. And this is Domaine Chevier 2021 Grand Cru Classé. It is a left bank Bordeaux. It is 60% Cab, 25% Merlot, 10% Petit Bordeaux, and 5% Cab Franc. Got it at Costco. $70 a bottle. Looked like a good deal. Had great critic scores across the board. Man, this thing couldn't decant long enough. Out of the bottle, okay. An hour later, acceptable. 2 hours later, all right, this isn't bad. That's how long, just all we had, 2 glasses each, 1 bottle of wine. At the end of the day, it's an 88. Are we going to score it? Yes. Why not? It's Costco. It comes in all the time. It wasn't all that great. But most of the wines we score, if we don't like them, it's like, I'm not going to bother. Why do I want to bother going through the time of doing the research on the winemaker and the winery and everything that went into it and the harvest and all the stuff we do in our reviews? If I hated the wine, I just don't want to bother with it. So I wonder about, where these scores come in, especially on independent sites. On the bigger sites, like I say, they're being sent in. Please score my wine. Sometimes you have to pay fees to have your wine scored. So anyway, great article on wine scoring. And if you get a chance, read it. Love to get your thoughts on scoring, what it means to you. Does it mean anything? We had a comment earlier on the, a few weeks ago when we were talking about someone scoring, and the guy said he thought James Suckling would give 90 points to a bottle of jail-made hooch, right? Well, who knows? I don't think so. I think, again, is it who you like? I've talked to people that they kind of like Suckling's flavor profile. They like the way he rates wine. So that's what they go with. I've talked to people that love Robert Parker. They like what he likes. So basically that fits. So maybe if you find a reviewer who you say, man, every time this guy rates a wine, 92 points, 91 points, I love it. So you're in good shape. So I think that's probably the best reason to look at a wine score. I don't know. Anyway, with that, quick shout out to our friends over at SOMM TV. If you don't know, SOMM TV is your one-stop shop for all entertainment related to wine. Well, not all of it, but a good chunk of it. They have movies, they have specials, they have deep dives on varietals, deep dives on regions, deep dives on wineries, deep dives on winemakers, blind tastings. It's all there. And if you use the link in the show notes here on YouTube, or if you go over to Cork and Journey and click on This Week Uncorked, you will get 50% off the monthly fee. I think it comes in $3.49 a month, and it is a bargain. So head on over to SOMM TV. Check that out. You will not be disappointed. New content drops every single week. And with that, let's move right on with the news. All right. So Wine Business has got an article on this is the lightest crush in California in over 20 years. So California crushed 2.84 million tons of wine grapes in 2024. And if you're looking at the graph right there on the screen, you can see that's low. The graph only goes back 10 years, but the last time that it was lower than that was in 2004 when it was 2.76 million tons of grapes crushed. From the article, in its preliminary crush report released today, the California Agricultural Statistics Service, man, we got a service for everything, said that 2.84 million tons of wine grapes were crushed in 2024, down 23% from 2023, when 3.7 million tons of wine grapes were crushed in California. The article goes on. I mean, they're not taking into account there were a lot of grapes left on the vine. They had a surplus. You didn't have enough buyers. You had all of these things going in. So was it a light harvest? Was it just there were no buyers? They let stuff die on the vine. Stuff just didn't make it to crush. Probably a lot of contributing factors that went into that. But as we've talked about, there has been a decrease in wine sale, wine production across the board. There you go. All righty. And then wrapping it up, kind of another interesting thing from Wine Business Monthly. The U.S. winery count declines slightly. So really interesting article going through wineries all across the United States, state by state by state, and kind of calling out where they are. So in 2024, the United States was home to 11,450 wineries. And I've only been to 11,400. Now, I guess I've got a lot more to go. Anyway, that is 1.5% less than the previous year when the number of wineries in Canada declined 2% to 871. The number one state by the number of wineries, of course, is California. It saw its share of all U.S. wineries decline to 41% from 43% last year, as the number of California wineries has dropped and the number of wineries in other states has grown. Hey, the big winner here was Texas, which saw the largest increase in wineries, gaining 5% over the previous year to 539. The increase further separates the Lone Star State from number 5, New York, which saw its number of wineries increase by just 1% to 466. Interesting statistic. New York is booming, though, and Texas is booming. But New York is, with what they're doing with Cab Franc and what they're doing with Riesling and some stuff that's going on in the Finger Lake districts, I personally think they may have a better wine growing region. I know they do than Texas. But that whole Texas region, we've covered it a lot. That's booming too. In California, maybe it's just there's only a certain number of wineries you can have at any particular time. But interesting report from Wine Business Monthly. If you've never checked them out, I highly suggest it. Winebusiness.com. Great news. They cover everything in the world of wine. If you want a job, they've got winejobs.com. It all sits over there at Wine Business. Great little website. Great publication as well. So if you don't know about it, I'm sure you do. But if you don't, check it out. And with that, let's get on to our wine and winery of the week. So we're going to do Coursey Graves. This is in Sonoma County. We had the pleasure of visiting them this summer. A lot of fun. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous winery. Purchased several years ago by a gentleman and his wife, and they have completely remodeled it. They built their residence up on the hill there. It is just an absolutely stunning place. And more importantly, they make great wines. Tastings are great. The hospitality is great. The tours are nice. You can see the pictures. Man, there is just literally nothing, no complaints about this place whatsoever. It is Sonoma. Their wines can be a bit pricey, but I found most of them in the tasting were absolutely outstanding to be worth it. I'm holding a bottle of the Coursey Graves here. This is their 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa. So they source the grapes from Napa here, not Sonoma. But just wonderful. I mean, give it a try. If you're up in that area, it's so less crowded up there. You're going to wind through the canyons and up, and it's a beautiful way to spend an afternoon. So highly recommend you check out Coursey Graves. And for the wine of the week, I wanted to go with something completely different. We talk about these high-priced wines. They're 150, they're 200, whatever. Well, here's the 2021 Domaine de Durban Kermit Lynch Vaucluse Rouge. So we've talked about Kermit Lynch before. If you don't know Kermit Lynch wine merchant, he has got this great book, Along the Wine Route. He's got Inspiring Thirst because he's got a newsletter that comes out all the time. And this is like the highlights from his newsletter that come out. You will, so those two books are worth checking out. But also, if you go to kermitlynch.com, you can buy the wines that he imports. He's gotten so big that he's working directly with a lot of winemakers over in Europe and just going ahead and slapping his name right on the label. But this was $14 a bottle. We rated it a solid 90 points. We'll talk about the point system. That means I at least liked it. And at $14, you might want to make it a daily drinker. Here's Domaine Durban, another one. This is slightly different. This is a 2022 red table wine, again imported by Kermit Lynch. This is a GSM. It is 70% Grenache, 25% more Syrah, and 5% Mourvèdre. Yeah, beautiful. And I think the price on this was $30, $25. He's got a Beaujolais, another one imported by Kermit Lynch. You can't go wrong. The price on this bottle was $27. This $14 one, you can find it over at kermitlynch.com. It's just, the guy makes great wine. He doesn't make great wines. He finds great producers over in France, over in Italy, and basically imports their wines over. Most of his stuff is from France, but it's just, he's doing really, really, really finding great little producers, getting their wine, shipping them on over. By the way, he's the guy who discovered that when he originally was buying his wine, he was shipping it over. He figured out, hey, it's not tasting the same. That's because it was big containers heating up the wine. He's the guy responsible for putting things in refrigerated containers and shipping them over that way. So anyway, check out Kermit. Wanted to give him a shout out. Someone asked earlier, do we get sponsored? Nobody pays anything. Now, who's going to give me money? No. This is just stuff we like. And so anyway, check out that wine. Check out Kermit Lynch. You will enjoy it. All righty. And with that, let's head over to our restaurant and Corkage of the Week. All right, we're going to head down to Cabo San Lucas, and we're going to head to the Chileno Bay Resort to Comal. Comal restaurant basically sits inside the resort. This is a gate-guarded, secure resort, so you got to go through one set of gates and then another set of gates, and then you're going to get down here into the main kind of area. There's some lovely little restaurants. We kind of got there early, went down to the bar and hung out for a little bit, then checked out another little restaurant. Then we ended up at Comal for dinner. I tell you, it was an open table called Comal, one of the 50 best restaurants in Mexico. Travel and Leisure named the resort the 12th best hotel in Mexico in 2020. And USA Today called Comal one of the best restaurants in Cabo San Lucas. They're all right. It was just fantastic. Lovely dinner, lovely ambiance, lovely view, amazing service. And if you want, you can bring your own bottle of wine. They don't care. It's going to cost you a $45 corkage fee, and they've got no limit on that as well. So if you're down in Cabo, this is not a restaurant you would just find in downtown. You're going to have to go hunt this place out, but it is well worth it. And that's going to wrap up another edition of This Week Uncorked. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. And as always, we would love it if you would follow us on YouTube, follow us on social media, like and subscribe, and all those good things. Until next week, cheers.